thanking you, Lord, for all your blessings. As we come assembled again to transact the business of this city, we ask your presence in this chamber. Direct our minds and our hearts that we may do the things that be pleasing in your sight, as well as to the welfare and the benefit of the citizens of this city. We ask you to bless the mayor, bless the council members, and all of those, Lord, who partake of governing this city. We praise you for your goodness and your mercy. It is in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
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 Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Bradford.
Present.
Councilman Everson.
Here.
Councilman Jenkins. Councilman Corbin.
Present.
Councilman Fleury.
Present.
Councilwoman Lynch. Councilman Bowman.
Tomorrow will be an exciting time to seek a motion to approve the minutes of the administrative conference and the city council meeting there on Tuesday, July the 25th. At this time, I'd like to recognize the council members that may have any awards, recognitions, or distinguished guests. Do I see anybody on the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to have
Chair recognizes Councilman Bradford.
a few communication items. And my communication at this point is going to be in the area of an engagement with the administration on a couple of three items. Mayor, if you don't mind.
Yes.
I want to engage the administration on four items. I want to present two of them now, and I want to present the other two at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
The four, because the last two is going to be talking about the police. There's been an ongoing issue with violence down at the Club Cocoa Club, and I want the police to respond on: do they have any jurisdiction, or have they gotten reports regarding the criminal element that has been overtaking that facility, that space?
Okay.
And then I want to get a sort of a feedback on the request that I made the resolution asking that the sheriff department engage in some patrolling within the city limits.
Okay.
Okay, that's the later part. The part that I want to discuss now is two items, and they sort of intertwine, but not necessarily directly. It's been a week, well, 6 days now since the incident happened with the young man, Deshaun Ambes, and there was some conversation regarding the drainage apparatus, the system, how it goes through the city.
Okay.
And in the back of that, I'm going to come back with the dog park, little pond where I saw an image where some young people out there swimming. Was that a real image?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Right. And I want to address that later on. But the
Okay.
first one is, I've heard administration say that since that incident, review of the way our outlet drainage system is configured would be reviewed and looked at.
Okay.
What kind of disturbed me was that when I heard one of the engineers say that the overall drainage system was the primary reason for it the way it's configured the way it is, without many items that will sort of obstruct large items from flowing through, is because of flooding, to be a preventive measure for flooding. And I wanted to know if that process has started to review that, and is that your opinion that it should not be refigured to address the safety of human beings being able to be flowed through that system?
So what we'll do is we will have our director of engineering to respond to that portion.
Okay.
The young man who did respond was just a city engineer.
Okay.
He does not know the system completely, but because our director was on vacation
Okay.
last week, But he'll respond to that, and you gonna do that on the end, or?
No, I won't do that now.
Okay,
if you don't
which one
mind.
you wanna come first, the police or the?
No, I want the police to come at the end of the meeting. I don't want to
Okay.
hold up all the time.
All
At,
right.
at my last comments, I'm going
Okay.
to address the crime issue.
Okay, then.
Okay.
We'll ask Mr. Westerman if he
Okay.
will come up and respond to the drainage system and the direction that I've given him.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Russellman, thank you for coming down. You're familiar with what happened last week, I'm sure.
Yes, sir. I heard about the information over the news. I wish to extend my apologies and sympathies to the family for their loss.
Anyway, one of the issues that questions that came from that was how did it happen? Why did it happen? Did we have, was our drainage system properly designed to avoid that from happening? While I don't place blame on anybody, but this is a situation where a tragedy happened, human life was taken, and my position is that we need to do whatever we need to do to make sure that doesn't happen again. I went over this afternoon after the big rain to sort of ascertain how was that water really flowing that day, and I want you to know it was speedy. I was happy to see all the vegetation and limbs and trees all eradicated from that drainage area and from the house. That was pretty to see, but the water itself was rushing at such a speed that I thought that maybe it could have been an opportunity for him to do something differently, but the water was really moving. So how is our drainage system designed, and what is the primary purpose of its design the way it is?
Councilman Bradford,
Yes.
I do want to make sure that, for the record, we're clear, since this is happening in this kind of form, that the city engineer cannot speculate on to the facts and circumstances of that incident, but if he's able to speak to just some historical reference on the drainage system and how that, I think that's appropriate for this area, but considering all the facts and circumstances and speculating is perhaps not appropriate in this arena.
This attorney, I did not ask him anything regarding
You
this
did.
incident.
You
Yes,
did.
you did.
You did. You
What-
asked
what-
him why did it happen?
No. I asked
Initially,
him,
you made that statement.
Let me repeat my statement.
Okay,
Let me repeat my
let's
statement.
repeat it.
My statement was that since the incident happened, there has been discussion from the public as well as from other officials regarding the way the system is designed. I said that somebody in engineering made a statement that the drainage system is designed for the purpose of making sure flooding doesn't occur within the city. And I'm asking you, Mr. Westerman, if that's the primary reason for the system, or is there any other ways that this system could be designed that will include safety of our residents, especially our young people?
Councilman, the city encompasses a large area, approximately 125 square miles. There have been natural drainage systems throughout the city before the city was constructed and developed, and after the city has been built and has been built up and expanded. During this time frame, these natural drainage systems quite often are improved as a result of requests from citizens and from property owners who are exhibiting flooding problems with their houses, structures, or whatever the case may be. So the city will go in and make improvements to the drainage systems in order to resolve these flooding issues. It is a matter of carrying stormwater runoff, through these systems in order to resolve flooding issues that occur to the adjacent properties and subsequent downstream properties. That's the primary issue of why those systems are placed. And yes, sir, we do consider best management practices for safety issues when we are looking at drainage systems.
Okay, so if we see, and I'm sure you're professional, I'm sure you could see various areas of the city and how those systems are placed and are they put in a, are they fashioned in a way, for instance, in residential areas or within areas where people frequent, if it appears to be a safety hazard, and if it does appear to be a safety hazard, is there action, or is there alternatives, apparatuses that could be put there to avoid young people or citizens from being put at risk? Is that a part of the consideration when we see things that may be in a place to where it does not seem to be safe?
Well, Councilman, anytime you place a structure inside a drainage system or a ditch or whatever the case may be, you are changing or creating another set of circumstances in order to resolve circumstances that you're looking at from that standpoint. For example, if you put in a grate system in front of a drainage pipe, all it takes is a little bit of blockage or trash from tree limbs and stuff like this to block that system, and subsequently those floodwaters will now go overland to the adjacent property or to downstream properties. So whereas you trade one set of circumstances, another set of circumstances can be created.
And I understand that, but it appears to me that, let's say not a grade, let's just say we put bars, or if a fence was to be put around it where a person could not be able to assess that area. Are those options, Mr.
That is one best management of practice, is to separate the drainage ditch with a fence system from adjoining properties. You don't put the fence in the ditch. You separate the ditch from the properties with a fence.
Okay, so that is exercised. That option is being already established in the city, is a part of the apparatus that protects citizens from those type of hazards.
Yes, sir. That is one of the best management practices.
Okay. That site need to be a candidate for that type of apparatus.
Yes, sir. That's a possibility.
Okay, and I'm just saying again that, like any other tragedy, whether it's caused by human error or by natural disaster, we have to take measures or consider all options to make sure that that does not happen again. And I'm saying that we cannot know what we know now and don't respond in the proper way.
Well, Councilman Bradford, as an engineer,
Sure.
I take it as a personal responsibility that anything I design, drainage, highways, bridges, whatever the case may be, is the safest possible facility that I can design. The loss of a human life to me for something I did is something that's just, I couldn't stand to think that I had done something that created that situation.
Okay. And again, this was a incident that happened that we don't know all the details. All I know is that what I saw is that it just appeared that it could have been anticipated that it was a danger and that we could have done something to avoid that danger. And it's nothing personal. It's nothing personal. I'm just saying in which I'm going to lead into the same type of incident that happened at the dog park. How can 4 or 5 young people jump over fence and get in the dog park and get in that nasty, filthy water? Is there not any type of measures that
They were dropped off there by their mother.
Good parenting.
well, I'm not going to broaden the conversation because I can go into how many young people in this city are put at risk because of a lot of factors. Okay, but at the same time, my question was that they was in there, and I'm asking, what if something would have happened? Is there any measures in place to avoid that from happening? That's what I'm asking.
Right, let me just respond to that portion. We
Okay.
have signs everywhere saying that kids should not be allowed to go in without adults. So the adults who dropped them off apparently either didn't read the sign or just dropped them off. But we put in place, we also made the announcements when we opened the dog park that no children should be allowed in that dog park without an adult. Now, can we be responsible for what 200,000 residents do? No, sir. But we do have signs everywhere that says that. So that's what we put in place.
I think there's some additional signage too around the pond itself that says that the pond is only a water feature for
Yeah.
for the canines.
And we're
too, so-
reevaluating that, that situation because we just opened it.
And it's, I mean, to me, that one's a little akin to some of the other places where we have natural water
Oh, yeah.
features at a park like the
Yeah.
Duck Pond or something. I mean,
People trying to
you
swim
know,
in there
that's always there. It's supposed to be there. It's not it's a feature of the park, and it's not for swimming.
You would agree to me, Mr. Councilman, you would agree that no parent with the understanding that was expressed by the mayor and Mr. Clark would allow their kids to get into something if they had that understanding, that this was not for human consumption. You would agree that no reasonable parent would allow their kids to get into a dog pond if they understood that that was not for human consumption. You would agree? Reasonable, logical.
I mean, the parent wasn't there.
No. They
dropped
dropped
the
them off for that
children off
purpose.
there
Now,
and left
what I'm trying to get at is simply that we have a culture in this city. We talked about it 2 weeks ago. That does not always understand the codes and ordinances of this city. We talk about trash. We talk about dilapidation around. Even this resident that this incident happened. I mean, for 4 days there was rubbish, trash in front of that yard, and I'm saying certainly that was an issue because it was a culture that was being expressed. Okay, it wasn't. There's a lot of that in Shreveport, but I'm saying, how do we protect this dog park instead from happening again? Have you get that into consideration?
Well,
Science ain't gonna do it.
And we looking at some other ways
Okay.
to try to do that one, since apparently people are not reading or they're reading and not following instructions, and people are going to do that. I mean, people see a stop sign, a red light, they run it anyway, and then that's how accidents occur. So there are some things we can do, but some things people have to take on the responsibility because sometimes they do know. We are looking at other ways, and that's what we do. This system, for an example, that you're talking about, we have that all over the city. That drainage situation that was put in the 1950s, been like that, 50, 60 years. And we look back as far as we could. In the last 10 years, we've not had any incidents like that. But whenever there is something like this that happens, when you have those kinds of situations out there, certainly I've directed staff to look at ways that we can minimize those kinds of safety issues, and that's what we're doing. I mean, and so staff knows. In fact, we have already begun looking at the master plan for the city for their drainage. That's already being addressed, and we're going to just add to it and make that part of it.
Let me ask you then, Mayor. I mean, certainly, I'm going to say again that everybody in this city is not as well educated or as sophisticated as some others. We have a very high level of poverty, of lack of education, who just live from day to day to take advantage of whatever areas that they feel like they can get some recreation. Okay? But I'm asking you, when you visited that scene, did that not look like a unsafe area to you? Did it look like an unsafe area?
I can't respond to that, and the reason I can't is because, I don't know why the ditch was there in the first place for the last 50 or 60 years. So I can't respond to that. All I can tell you that we look back over 10 years and there had not been an incident, but that particular situation, I did drive around the city afterward. We got that same situation all over the city. And of course, it's in place for a reason. I'm not an engineer, so I can't respond to that. All I can tell you is it's unfortunate. We have really been trying to help that little family, and the stuff you saw out front, all of the garbage, she was in the middle of moving when it happened. And so it may be the reason why the kids was out in that rainstorm jumping the ditch in the first place. I don't know the rationale for that. But she was in the middle of moving. We went into her house when we got the call, and she had put a lot of stuff out on the curb herself because she was in the middle of moving to another residence.
Yeah. And I visited with her as well, and she told me that as well. But I, in your observation as you toured the city, did you see a house that was in that close proximity to a drainage ditch?
I did not look for any.
Okay. And that was my point. And that the safety issue of it was that the closeness it was to that point. And then you got to figure in the fact that, and again, we don't know, but if those were the shoes that the young man was wearing in the rain, house slippers, it would tell us the degree of conditions in which that family was engaged in living.
So I have no idea about any of that.
I understand.
Yeah.
So, as I conclude this sector, is that that's being reviewed. The safety measures
Yes, throughout the city.
Throughout
We're
the
going to
city.
do it at that location and throughout the city because we have that same situation in many parts of our city, all over our city actually, all over our state. But certainly we'll look within the city and see if there are options and ways that we can better secure those kinds of situations to ensure as much safety as we can.
Okay. And in regards to the dog park, the only viable option you have now is to put up more signs. Is that what I understand?
No, I didn't say that. I said we're looking at some things. We've already put up a bunch of signs, and of course, we'll do some more education with it. We have done a lot of education. We put it all over, our city website. We also have sent out things through our Shreveport Dog Park Alliance. We'll be working with them on some other ways to try to educate people, but then people make decisions, Councilman Bradford. And, we're not always there when they make those decisions. Don't know the rationale.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Okay. That concludes the council member part, and I'll recognize Mayor Tyler at this time.
Okay, I just got a couple of announcements today and some tomorrow. This Wednesday, I think we sent something to council members. Just want to remind you today, and I'll probably remind you again tomorrow, that the Independence Bowl luncheon kickoff will be done at our Shreveport Convention Center. And it's going to be done at noon on Wednesday. I did send something to you all if you want to attend. We're sponsoring. That's a table that you can have. I think so far we've only gotten response from one person. Also, this Thursday evening, November 10th at 6 p.m., we are going to be going to the top 20 film prize winners for the Louisiana Film Prize. And so that's going to be held at the Robinson Film Center. And I just wanted to make sure that you all knew about those activities. And our last one today, and we'll make this one again tomorrow. Our city is such a caring community that steps up when others are in need. I want to thank those who contributed to 2 unfortunate incidents in our community. The funeral services or expenses for little Deshaun Best have been covered through community donations, and money has been generously donated toward the medical expenses of one, and I hope I don't mispronounce his name, Zunica, the co-manager of the El Compadre Restaurant, and we are asking the community to continue praying for both of those families. So those are the ones that I have for today, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mayor, thank you very much. Mr. Green, anybody have any questions for Mr. Green? Going once, going twice. Mr. Green, thank you very much. I see no questions. And I believe Mr. Crawford has given us the revenue collection plan. And
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
no questions there. And our very able legal counsel, Mr. Bradford, has submitted a report as well. Does anyone have a question for him?
You'll notice there's a small difference on my report this time on the notification letters and the demand letters. We're changing the process, it's a little more aggressive, and so hopefully you'll see an uptick in revenues collected on that report.
And anyone else have a question there? Okay, then let's move on to Mr. Thompson. Any legislation to be added today?
No legislation, Mr. Chair.
And we have no one who has signed up to speak today on public comments on the agenda. Has to be on the agenda today to be able to speak. And that would bring us down to the executive appointments to be considered today. And I believe we've been over those, right?
Right.
Anyone have a question on those? We'll move on to Mr. Thompson. Please continue.
I think it's my job on Monday, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
Got to earn my check now.
Okay.
Now let me do it. Consent agenda legislation to adopt ordinances and resolutions. Resolution 131 accepting the dedication for the Silver Point Drive and Water Lily Lane right-of-way in Silver Point at Lakeside Unit Number 1. And Resolution 132 suspends certain provisions of Chapter 10 and any applicable provisions of the Shreveport Unified Development Code of the Shreveport Code of Ordinances relative to the sale, dispensing, and consumption of alcoholic beverages on October 5th, 2017 through October the 8th, 2017 at the Louisiana Film Prize Festival located in downtown along Conman Street, the 700 block of Texas Street, and the 500 block of Louisiana Street.
Are there any questions here? Okay, we'll continue on.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Reading resolutions on second reading and final passage or which require only one reading. Resolution 133 authorizes the city attorney and his or her designee to research and study the feasibility and legality of creating and operating an internal city planning, zoning, and development department, Shreveport PZ&D Department, along with the City PZ&D Commission, Shreveport PZ&D Commission, and the City Zoning Board of Appeals, Shreveport ZBA, instead of using the Shreveport Metropolitan Planning Commission of Caddo Parish, its staff, and its ZBA for the purposes of the City of Shreveport governing its own planning and zoning matters within its corporate limits.
Does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bradford? Councilman Bradford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Wrong, Mr. Bradford.
You're sponsoring this legislation. Can you explain what's your real motivation here?
My real motivation here is to ask the city attorney, our very able legal counsel, or his designees, to research and study the feasibility and the legality of creating and operating an internal city planning. I call it PZD, Planning, Zoning, and Development, in accordance with Section 8.07 of the City Charter that says that the Shreveport City Council can legally set up and establish a planning commission. And I will save my comments primarily for tomorrow, but this is to enable us to do the ABCs. A is to hold this department accountable, the new department, giving accountability. And then I'm also looking to have a department that helps strengthen and lift up the brand of Shreveport, the city of Shreveport. I want a brand that says, come to Shreveport, we welcome you. We are a business-friendly government. And then I'm also using the C for customer service. I want a department that's responsible, accountable, and gives a good brand, and I want a department that primarily function beyond any doubt, customer service. I do not want citizens of this city to come here and deal unfavorably, be treated unfairly. So I'll save my other comments, but this is what I'm trying to accomplish. We have it under the charter, and I believe that all I'm asking is to let us look at it, to research it, study, and see if we can make things better for the citizens of Shreveport.
I have a follow-up question.
Yes, sir.
So, it is your opinion that the quality, the level of service that you just mentioned are not being provided?
They're not being provided in the manner accustomed to the $1-point-something million that the taxpayers of the city of Shreveport give. I think that we can do better.
Did the Unified Development Code, did that play a role in your thinking?
No, the Unified Development Code, they spend a lot of time, lots of money. And as you all know, Councilman Everson led our master plan update committee on the parish up there with Longview. I served with him the year before, and then you're there with him now, and he's done everything possible to ask the city, to ask the MPC to adopt and change and modify, correct things that were he didn't felt. He recommended them, and he said, these things need to be changed to make it a lot easier. So, no, I thought the UDC, based on what my friend Councilman Everson said, would be a great thing for the city. It's just that the quality of customer service, they're not listening to us up there.
Mr. Chairman, the performance of the MPC and the ZBA is under the preview of its executive director. So when you're saying they ain't listening to us, then I would have to offer that is the executive director an issue, or is it the MPC an issue, in your opinion?
I think it's both.
I think it's both.
I think it's both. And when I say they're not listening, I'm not talking to the city council. I'm talking about the citizens of Shreveport that go down there for service. I asked in the last council meeting, Mr. Sweeney, do we have any room for compromise on closing? 12-1. I have personally received non-stop people coming to me since I announced that I wanted us to just research and study it. I've had a lot of calls and a lot of emails, and people said they have been living in fear for 2 years because they were scared to speak up because of retaliation. I had people to tell me of an elderly man walked all the way up Travis Street on a walker, got up into the MPC office and had his check and his application, and a man witnessed that. They told him, said, "Oh, you'll have to come back next week. She's on vacation and we can't accept any money." But this is not just one issue that I've had. I have a file here full of issues. I've had people to tell me, contractors, that they have set on the certificate of occupancy documents up there for 12 days, and all they had to do was sign the document, and they've had to hold their workers off of the job, pay them, and wait. And this can be done. We're better than this. Accountability, that's what I'm talking about.
But they have their own board.
They have their own board, and thank God Mayor Tyler pulled somebody up there, and he went up there the first day and voted wrong. Didn't listen to nobody. And I called him. I said, "What are you doing? You're voting to renew a man's contract that no one but the city, but the mayor can sign a contract. And you went up there and voted, and you knew that wasn't right." Well, I didn't know. Well, you got to know. We've got 4 members, Mr. Bradford, Councilman Bradford. We got 4 members. The parish has 4, and then we share 1.
Well, see, and I'm going to be brief. My issue is again, I have both subordinates as well as superiors, and if something doesn't perform right under my supervision, I'm held accountable. And then there are who I'm held accountable to. So if you're saying that Mr. Sweeney's job performance is not being citizen friendly, business friendly, then it appears that the board would be his area of accountability, and that the board is not holding him accountable. You're saying? Are you saying that?
I'm saying that.
Okay.
Yes.
And that let me ask you, familiar with what he's asking, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, sir.
Give me. It's to restructure the MPCCBA under the city.
I think the request for the resolution is for the city attorney's office to determine what steps are necessary to create a PZ&D board
Okay.
and PZ&D department.
Okay.
To have it operate as a planning division of the city of Shreveport,
Okay.
as opposed to a Metropolitan Planning Commission.
Okay.
As I understand it, we're instructed to not only look at the feasibility, not only look at the legalities of it, i.e. what laws, ordinances need to be adjusted, changed, or created, but also to look at, through the various departments of the city of Shreveport, what would be required to implement that department, to implement that function as a department of the city, whether it be finance, the relationship they have with the finance department, the relationship they have with permits, et cetera, to see exactly what is the best mechanism to have a localized planning division for the city of Shreveport.
Okay. So your charge is not to even deal with any type of restructuring of the MPC as it is.
Not as the NPC stands today, but to structure.
Put together
a
another
department.
an organization that could assume the responsibilities and duties of that.
Correct.
Of that commission.
Correct.
And that you'll bring that back, and at the proper time, the council would have options on which one they want to finance.
That's correct. And there will be, as I understand it, this will be referred to Audit and Finance for discussion in that committee
As to what it's gonna cost.
as to relative to the cost of it and the functionality.
Is there any state legislation that will hinder or somewhat prohibit us from doing what you're asked
So,
to do?
the MPC is created as a function of state statute under 33140.6. That provision is permissive, in my opinion. It's permissive. It says that if the city of Shreveport and the parish of Caddo choose to have an MPC, then these are the steps and requirements for the creation and maintenance of that quasi-governmental entity. It, to me, is not compulsory that you have to have an MPC. In fact, as a home rule charter, we actually have ordinances in place that determine what happens if the MPC should cease to exist. And so, from a constitutional standpoint for the state of Louisiana, as well as from a statutory standpoint, I think that the hurdle of whether or not the city can create its own department has been cleared, and now we're into what is the best practice, and is that in the best interest of the city of Shreveport moving forward? So that's as I understand it, that's what the resolution is asking the city attorney's office to make an opinion on. Is it in the best interest of the city? Is it feasible? And is it something that's practical for us to operate?
Will your research include bringing some options that the parish could utilize, the services that would be developed?
That is a portion of what I've been instructed to look at too.
I'm for change, but also I've seen in instances where change may not always be for the good. We change is change, but I like, because again, I'm not naive to some of the things that you said. Okay, I was hoping that because of the frequency of the complaints that we get from the NPC and the ZBA, that it would have fallen on some very kind ears to try to make those modifications to really try to at least satisfy some of those issues. I didn't think it was a big deal to change office hours to maintain a flow of citizens who are trying to take care of their business in that endeavor. You know, in a service industry, we stay open at the designated time. It says on the, you know, and I get on my staff all the time. It says 8 to 5. Okay, 8 to 5 is 8 to 5. You know, and that's when we provide service. We provide service from 8 to 5, and we don't alter that.
Councilman Bradford, can I say this?
Sure.
Our review is not, from the city attorney's office, is not a referendum on any staffing personnel for the NPC.
Yes,
Our
sir.
approach is only if the city creates a planning, zoning, and development board or development department, then what has to occur, i.e. what legal mechanisms have to be put in place or overcome, and, you know, like I said before, the financing requirements as well as any of the other, you know, budgetary requirements that'll come into play, and to make a recommendation on the best practices moving forward for that, under that assumption. And so that's the limited scope of what we will be reviewing per this resolution.
And I appreciate you saying that, but I understood that you would not be personalities is not a factor in your work.
No,
What you're being commissioned to do.
that's correct.
And I understand that. But it appears that from what Councilman Chair is referring to, there is seem to be a portion of this is a personality issue where he don't feel like some of the staff in that department is being responsive to citizens, and that for some reason that the board that oversees that commission is not being prudent in holding staff accountable, and that's very very disturbing. Anyway, we go vote on this. Is a one reader. We vote on it tomorrow.
This resolution only engages us for that purpose of doing the review. And I think the ultimate goal is that upon recommendation to the Audit and Finance Committee, that committee will deliberate and make a recommendation to the full body, and as policymakers and the governing authority, you will have the prerogative at that time and the ability at that time to deliberate whether or not you feel that that recommendation should proceed or whether or not we should remain as is. So there's not this vote will not change how the city operates at this time.
Okay, so my last question to you is that at what juncture would that be brought back to the council for
I think it gives
consideration?
us 45 days in the resolution to make a recommendation within 45 days.
So that'll put us at the beginning of the budget process.
That's correct.
And that if we choose to go A or B come January 1st, we should be comfortable in knowing that there would be no interruption in service.
Correct.
All right. Well, Sweeney, you have anything you want to say? We're going to vote on this tomorrow. Any response from you?
I'd rather that you hold Councilwoman Lynch has a chance to speak.
That's so yield, Mr. Chairman.
Councilwoman Lynch.
Well, let him come on, because
Okay.
I'm kind of going in
All right,
another
come right on,
direction.
Ms. Sweeney. She'd like to have you.
No, I wouldn't. That's Willie.
She would rather him to come on now.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sweeney, you remember last year?
Oh, wait a minute.
You are familiar with some issues that the council has had with the NPC.
Yes. And I guess one of the things that always happens, especially around the budget time, The question that is always asked, the $64,000 question, is why does the parish only provide 13% of our funding and the city has to provide 66% of our funding? And for the last 3 budget years, that's been the driving force. And if you remember, that's what was kind of the driving force for the attempt back in last December to remove $500,000 from our budget, and that failed. Again, the bottom line is the fairness of the funding subsidy. And so one of the things I want to bring to your attention is, and if you remember just a few months ago, back in May, you all approved a budget amendment. And in that budget amendment, one of the things that I asked to do with that money was to do a financial sustainability study of the MPC, because no one has ever, in all the years since its existence from 1962, which is when the MPC was established by state law between the parish and the city, no one's ever done an in-depth analysis of how the funding should be and what all the financial components should be. And so in this study that we're doing, that we've hired a consultant, Tischler Bice, that's done some work for the city in the past, come September, we will have the results of that study. And for the first time, someone will take a very unbiased and objective view of how the funding structure should be put together for the MPC. Now, I don't know what the outcome of that study will be, because the intent is to get the facts and the reality of what that study would produce. And so come September, we will actually have answers to the questions that you all have been asking us for the last 3 budget years. Now, certainly it's the city's right to create its own planning and zoning department and its own planning and zoning commission. Certainly there's nothing wrong with asking that question. Nothing at all. In fact, anyone that looks at anything should always ask questions and figure out what's the best way to do something. But you do have to remember that in 1962, when the MPC was created, the purpose was to create an independent, objective organization and board, half selected by the city, half selected by the parish, to rule and to make decisions on planning and development related issues, and to make recommendations to both bodies, the parish as well as the city.
And I understand that,
Right.
Mr. Sweet. The issue, and I don't, if you're not comfortable with responding, that's fine. The issue, it seemed to be from the chairman, and I'm hearing rumbles from other places, is that you don't seem to be receptive to directions and change. Is that a fair assumption?
That would be an unfair assumption, because the reality is that any time we are approached by a developer or by a business, we always attempt to find a way to help find a solution to their problem. What often happens, and this is the case because, again, I'll come back to the reality, is we put into place procedures and systems that allow for the approval of site plans now within 30 days or less. You've never had that system in place before. That process is working like clockwork. And since y'all approved those changes a year ago this month, my department, my division, or my organization has not denied a site plan once in that 1 year. We have worked with every developer to get their project approved. Yes, they might have to make some changes. There might be some delays on the part of the applicant, but typically at the end of the day, in 30 days or less, their projects are approved. Now, in the context of that, we've gotten tremendous compliments and thanks for having put that system into place. And it is working, and it has worked now for over 12 months. So a lot of times the folks that do complain, or oftentimes, and I'm not saying it's everyone, because we do make mistakes. That's just human error. We make mistakes. But most of the time, the people that are directly complaining are oftentimes the ones that don't want to follow the rules that everybody else has to follow. And so when we say, sir or ma'am, you have to do it this way because that's what the ordinance says, it ruffles their feathers and it makes them angry. And instead of working with us, they go around us. and they complain to y'all. Now, there's always two sides to every story. And the reality is quite often you'll hear only one side of the story. You don't hear the story where we sat down and met with the individuals 4 and 5, 6 times trying to work out an issue, and we hit a brick wall with them. So part of my responsibilities, and this is the hardest part of my responsibility, is not bending the rules so much as to I don't want to break the rules. I have to enforce the rules. Now, are there ways to make things happen within the context of the rules that are reasonable? Yes, and we always seek that out. But every once in a while, we reach a point where we have to say, sir, we can't do that because this is what the City Council and the Parish Commission have approved as the ordinances, and we have to stick with that. And because we won't make those exceptions, we get criticized by that small percentage of developers who are used to a system maybe where they got it the way they wanted, but now having to do it the way everyone has to do it in a fair and equitable way is not something they want to accept. So that's oftentimes where 90% of our criticism generates from. It is not from not being workable. There's not a person that doesn't walk into my office that doesn't get the opportunity to sit down with someone and work out an issue. There's no one that's ever turned away. And this story of someone in a walker that came up and had a check and somebody was gone on vacation, I've never even heard of that story. Well, that creates a kind of a self-feeding effect of saying there's all this going on when in reality that's not necessarily always the case.
Okay. And let me end by saying that I think the option of looking at an alternative is maybe a good idea. Okay? But at the same
Sure.
time, it kind of bothered me to hear that you wasn't being held accountable by your board. Do you? Is that?
My board does hold me accountable. They will always tell me if something is not working right or if something needs to be given greater emphasis. I listen very intently to my board, and I ask them point blank. We occasionally have meetings where I say, what's going on? What do you feel like we need to do? What can we do to improve something? And so that's always an open, ongoing conversation.
Okay. So you don't get this type of feedback from your board as relates to you not being friendly to your prospective clients.
We never have that issue with anyone that walks in the door that we're not being friendly and receptive.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
I just have one question for you, Mr. Sweeney. The study that you're having done, does that include the fees? Or
Yes,
is it just strictly? Okay, so
Yes.
it's everything.
Yes, in fact, we're even looking at our retirement program and our benefits to look at the whole picture.
Okay.
And looking at things that are not on sometimes you don't see certain things. For example, the cost of the fact that you provide us with free rent for our offices. That's never calculated into the overall financial picture. I've asked this consultant to look at the whole process for the first time.
All right.
So we will actually have answers for you come September that I would hope to be of value to us as we negotiate the budgeting process.
That includes salaries as well?
The whole thing. Yes, ma'am.
So in that, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So you expect that to be a pretty comprehensive, it's not going to be like a 3-page or something like that?
No, ma'am. I've asked very specifically, since this has never been done before, to explain to me why certain things have been done the way they have for the last several decades. And it's amazing how many things that were never written down. So we're actually researching out with both the parish. We've met with the parish. We've also, Erica Bryant, we've met with Charles Madden and some of his staff to talk at length and to find out detailed information for this organization that has never been laid out in front of you before. I guess that's why I'm bringing it to your attention is before you go down this path of creating a separate planning and zoning division or department, let's see what the results of this study are, and let's see what that leads you to. Now, at the end of the day, if you decide you want your own planning and zoning, again, that is your right. And amazingly enough, that's what I'm most used to. When I came from Texas, all the cities I worked for had their own planning and zoning commissions and their own planning departments. Strangely enough, I actually am your in-house expert on how that actually works and functions. And certainly, if the city decided that's the path they wanted to go down, there is nothing that stands in the way for them doing that, other than the legal procedures that they need to go through to accomplish that.
Okay, so let me ask you now, how much did that study cost?
$30,000.
$30,000. Okay. And you said it was with Tisch?
Tischler Weiss.
Okay.
This is the company that did some work on the master plan. They were a subcontractor to Goody Clancy during that, back in 2009, 2010.
Thank you.
Yes.
My next question, I think, is for the, thank you,
Okay.
is for the city attorney. Okay, so in the state law, it says if the planning commission ceases to exist, right? The language, I believe it says.
It's
if it-
actually section 8.07 of the charter.
Okay, it says if it ceases to exist. And my question is what would precipitate it ceasing to exist? What, do you know what was intended and what would cause it not to exist anymore?
I think a resolution by the council establishing the PZ&D and then any subsequent necessary ordinances would suffice to create the planning, zoning, development board, or development department.
Okay. So, okay. All right. My other question is could this be undertaken without a city council resolution? Because I'm assuming that the administration is continually looking at ways to improve city services,
I think, I'm sorry.
or city departments or whatever. So that's just my question. Can this be undertaken without a resolution?
I think that as the governing authority, it would be required by the city council to create that department and fund that department. And also, as it relates to zoning, you all are the final authority for zoning matters in the city of Shreveport. It's more proper that it is created by the city council and subsequently funded under, future ordinance.
Okay. Now, do you have time to work on this and the Pelicans? That's what I'm just trying to figure out.
I've got a great staff.
What? Oh, you got a great staff?
Great staff.
Okay. I'm just asking. He was a part of that team, right? Okay. Well, I wish we had this tough love approach with the current city departments that we have. I guess I'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. City, the question about the board, I think this is my last question, on the board, the MPC board, we have 4 members, right?
Yes, ma'am.
The city has, the parish has 4 members, and then we have a joint person.
Yes, ma'am.
So the accountability rests with that board. Now, the city council, do those appointments come through the mayor or through the, I know we confirmed them, but if there's a problem with the director or with some things that are going on, is not the board accountable? I know we keep saying the executive director, but at what point, what responsibility does the board have in addressing some of these issues that are being brought up now?
Under the state statutes, the MPC is actually the Metropolitan Planning Commission, and they have the right under the statute to hire staff as necessary, and that includes the executive director. So ultimately, they are the recommending body to the city council, but they're in effect the governing authority for that commission. The commission is the body that governs the MPC, not the executive director. He is a staff employee of the MPC under the statute.
Okay. So my question, I guess, Fleury, is are you feeling more strongly that the board is not upholding their responsibilities? Or do you just think the city is just going to do a better job?
I think the city will do a better job. There's no accountability. Nobody's trying to help the citizen. They go up there.
But this is a citizen board.
I know.
Okay, and
They're appointed, not elected.
right, and they're supposed to be held accountable. I mean, they're supposed to be accountable, right?
Right.
And so are you saying that?
The board's 5-4 split. And so the city gives $1 million something, in my opinion, Councilwoman. And we don't get a good deal for $1 million. The parish gives $200,000. They got 4 board members. 5, counting us a good job. So I'm just saying, I believe the city can do a better job. And if somebody throws this at me, and if you don't mind letting me say this, please, that there's a lot of authority. One of these writers wrote that this was a paragraph by the mayor. The mayor wasn't even involved as far as me. I didn't go to her and say, look, that all I asked was Mr. Thompson, Mr. Crawford, and Mr. Bradford, would you please look at this and see what we could do, and if and then we will send it to, after they conclude, we'll look and say, it may come back to me and say, this is not a good deal. And I'm man enough to say, okay. But I think it is going to be. I believe that you're going to hear tomorrow from the citizens that are coming here to speak because they want to finally get out and say what they think.
Well, then, I don't have a problem with that. People saying what they think.
Oh, I love it. I love it. But
Okay, so
I'm just asking for please just research and study, and that's all I'm asking for.
Okay, so let me ask you, Mr. Bradford, the study that Mr. Sweeney is talking about, do you think that's going to have any effect on this resolution in terms of what this resolution is asking you to do?
I think that the study that Mr. Sweeney references contemplates the NPC continuing to operate as it stands now. This resolution requests me to identify best practices if the city of Shreveport chooses to bring planning in-house. So I think that they are not mutually exclusive. The study can exist with our review at the same time.
Have questions?
Can I quote you on that?
What do you say?
Your clerk makes a good point that it would be instructive if we choose to enter into a contract with the parish, given if PZ&D becomes an internal department of the city of Shreveport.
All righty, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now the chair recognizes Vice Chairman Bowman.
I would like if Mr. Sweeney would come back, please.
Yes, sir.
So I appreciate that.
Great minds think alike.
And I heard what you said earlier when the councilman was asking a couple of questions, Councilman Bradford. But when it's being said that you are the department is seemingly being unwelcome, why exactly why? I mean, real briefly, exactly why? I heard what you said at first, but is it more so because of they're not having exactly what you're asking for, or is it there's no room for leaning or bending or within the law? Or you explain it better to me.
Yes, so just to kind of reiterate something that was said was that within any code or law, there's always flexibility to do different things. There's often more than one way to accomplish something. And one of the things that I train my staff to do is that if there is a way for us to help an applicant accomplish exactly where he's going and wanting to go with his project, let's find a legal, defensible process to do that. And so within that context, there's a certain amount of leniency that is built into the code that we exercise on a daily basis. There are certain things that fall outside of the code, things that we can't do for applicants.
Most times it's things that we can't do.
Right, and so what happens is that builds a certain amount of discontent on the part of a very small percentage of developers who feel like, or business people who feel like they're not being given their opportunity that they want. And so that's interpreted as though we're being unfriendly or not business friendly or cooperative. Now, if you remember when I told you we went through this process in getting the UDC approved, one of the things I highlighted for you was the series of endless meetings we had with the development community to compromise on various key issues, whether it was SWEPCO or the billboard industry or the Home Builders Association. That spirit of cooperation and finding compromise to create a better ordinance still plays out on a daily basis in what we do in working with individual applicants. And so it's very hard. There's a certain percentage of people that at some point in time in the past used to be able to walk in the door and get what they wanted approved because they knew somebody that knew somebody. I call it the good old boy system, as you're very well aware. And so basically, I'm just saying is that I stopped doing that. I came in and said that I want to be ethical across the board and to enforce the laws equally, no matter who you are, what you've done, or who you know. And there's a certain percentage of individuals who want us to go back to that system. And my principles do not allow me to do that.
The same complaints, just as a point of perspective, the same complaints happened with previous directors and previous MPC bodies. And, you know, I don't mean to interrupt the conversation here, but I mean, I think that there are a lot of sensitive feelings about zoning. I mean, it is a difficult practice even with the best customer service, you know, because it is something that a lot of times constituents would like to see quality rather than use. You know, what they care about is this a nice store, not is it a store or an office building. You know, I mean, those are things that are difficult to always communicate in legislation, and that's not exactly how zoning works. And so, I mean, there's always going to be, and then developers want to obviously do what their business plan says as fast as they can. And, you know, so everybody comes at zoning with a different interest point, and that's certainly understandable. That's normal. That's how it is. I don't really see the harm in having all the information possible, having both the MPC study, that is a great study to have, that shows us, you know, because we do provide legal services and financial billing services and office space and all these things that really have never been factored. And Mr. Sweeney is absolutely right that we've never really had that information clearly defined, so that will be helpful to have. And why not at the same time have this other information? I mean, this may show us very much how much of value we are getting out of having the MPC the way we do. I mean, we don't know the answer until we look at it. So I don't see what the harm is in looking at it. I will not advocate a position of what we do with that information because I don't know what the information is going to say. But I am not interested in seeing it out of spite or anger or anything. Though, I mean, it's an interesting bit of information that feels like it would be informative to have. So I don't see the harm, but that's just my 2 cents. And don't mean to disrupt the conversation. I just felt like it was maybe getting a little contentious, and I think we can all get good information. I think all the information we have is going to be helpful, and I think we all want to see this work the best, and we're all looking at it from different perspectives. We have different reasons that we interact with it. We have different reasons our constituents call us about it, different types of constituents who call, be they investors or citizens or whatever the point of entry for those concerns are is different. And so we're all going to be, and I look at the MPC in different ways in the same day, you know, I mean, I have, you know, because of just the way our city council rolls on. So, you know, why not get all the information and make the best decisions we can? And
I understand.
we don't need to be accusatory or insulting about it. Let's just get all the information we can to be helpful and work together right.
Okay. And when you say that there is nothing standing in the way of us having our own, but would you lose some of your employees or something?
Yes, more than likely there will be a significant loss of staffing. You also have to understand that let's project outward, and let's say you came up with results that said yes, you could.
Mr. Chairman,
go
point of order.
Sure.
We have not heard the report. You can't speak on anticipating what.
No, I don't mean the report. I'm not.
That you're saying
right.
with the loss of staff. You're saying you're trying to inject other changes that may not be.
So let the report to determine that. And I have no problem with that. He just asked me a question of my own opinion, so that's fine.
Okay. Well.
I was just giving you my opinion.
Huh? No, but I mean, but he can't anticipate what the report's going to be in regards to loss of staffing and those kind of
Yeah,
things.
the resolution specifically asks for us to look at it from the lens of keeping the entire staff.
Oh, is that right?
It's in the resolution.
Okay. All right.
It's in the record.
Are we gonna save some money then?
The question was, we save money if we keep
But
everything.
let him go. We.
Okay.
No, that's why I'm leaving.
Chairman
So-
Bowman.
that's what you-
I mean,
okay.
Mr. Bowman has the floor.
What was the savings at, huh?
That's why I'm here. So we can
Get the report.
We can wait till we get the report.
And I
Motion,
concur.
let's get to-
I concur. I think you're absolutely right, Councilman Bradford. Let's let the reports speak for themselves. I'm confident in that.
And you do believe that your board holds you accountable? You know, if they're part-time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My board.
So you, I mean, that's
Just
so
like we are.
Yeah, like
they
we
Right.
are.
hold you accountable, even though
That's
you.
right. I answer to them, and if I get out of line or I do something I'm not supposed to do, you got to remember any decision I make is appealable either to you guys as a city council or to my board. And if I get out of line or if I do something that's incorrect, they're going to call.
That's not on every. That's not on.
Yes, everything I do can be appealed or to the, as far as planning and zoning related issues, either they go to you or they go to the ZBA or they go to the Metropolitan Planning Commission board itself. And so you've got to understand that avenue is always built into every system. So I'm not sitting out there where I'm not accountable. This term of not being accountable is questionable because I am accountable to my board, which is a board that you partially select half those members and the other half is from the parish commission. But they are also supposed to exercise independent judgment as an independent agency, as was created by the state statute. And so that's the reason why their position, because they're half and half with one joint, they're in a position sometimes to make different types of recommendations. But at the end of the day, you, the council, and the parish will end up making the final decisions. Again, most of the time what they do are recommendations.
Lastly, so the office is closed for an hour for lunch. That's strictly just for lunch.
That's been true for over 2.5 years. We've not had any complaints until just the last couple of months. But understand something, that if it is the feeling of my board that I should stay open at lunchtime, I would change that in a New York minute. So I'm not, nothing is,
Because some people take their,
Right.
their lunch break, which is probably the same time that their break is, and they
Right.
come rushing down here to take care of business, and they can't because the office is closed.
and we watch the door and we realize that we don't get any traffic at lunchtime. And that's probably because most of the public knows, but understand that even something like that to me is negotiable and changeable. Nothing's in concrete. You've got to understand that if it came to the bottom line that the best thing we could do for customer service was to stay open for lunch, I would do it immediately.
I think the bottom line is we just want more yeses and open to business minded customer service. That was it.
Sure, I understand that totally.
So has that come before your board?
What's that now?
Lunch hour closure.
It has not come before my board
But if they, was on the agenda?
Next meeting.
for September, yes. And like I said, if they say they want me to do that, I certainly will do it, just without question. I want you to understand there is an attitude of cooperation here and not of one of just digging my heels in and not cooperating. That if I see something's not working, I will change it myself without even being asked to do so.
And it's not just a one-man show up there.
I wish, as much as the fake media has tried to don me as being the king and the czar, I wish I was, but I've never been in that position, and I'll come back to what I said to you earlier. Every decision I make when it comes to development is appealable to some other body or policy-making decision makers.
I yield to council later.
I'm glad you said something about the fake media. Because when they were running around knocking on my neighbors with the words, talking about I lived in Baton Rouge, I understand where you're coming from on that. No, I do not live in Baton Rouge. I love the food, though. So let me, I heard I live in Benton. I live somewhere, I guess, depending on who you talk to. Let me ask, I'm not really sure if this is an effort to get rid of you or get rid of the MPC. So you think if you were gone, we wouldn't even be having this discussion?
I think this, that's a good question. I think that this would be a question regardless of whether I was here or not, because I think it comes down to the funding structure of the MPC.
I haven't heard, I've heard a little bit about that, but that doesn't seem to be what's the angst is coming from.
And you may be right, Councilwoman, that there may be certain personality factors that people will play out. But I come back to what I said to you earlier: the ones that are usually speaking out against us are the ones that don't want to follow the rules, like everyone else has to.
Okay, so let me go back to the lunch thing.
Yes.
Did the board vote to implement that? Why
No.
did they have to vote to change it if they didn't vote to implement it?
Okay, because I'm an executive director and not just a director, and I have a contract with the board that I established back in October of 2014. I am given the opportunity to set the daily procedures and policies of my organization. But my board has the ability to turn around to me and say, look, Mark, if we think it would be better if we did this, then I am always cooperative with their sentiments.
Okay, so you can make the decision without them.
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Okay, so is there a reason why you haven't?
Well, I didn't receive any complaints until just 2 months ago, and it only was 3 complaints. And that 2+ years before that, we received no complaints. And so now that doesn't mean that somebody might not have murmured about it, but once they got used to the fact that we were available the remainder of the day and not just for that 1 hour being closed, it didn't seem to be a problem. I've had no developers come to me and say, Mark, we wish you were open at lunchtime because that's really creating a problem for us. I've never had anyone come to me, but if they had of, I would have said, okay, then I need to reconsider that policy. So all of this, again, fake news, create this furor, and so basically in the last 2 months, all of a sudden it became a huge issue. And that's what you call exaggeration. Now, again, I say this again, if tomorrow the best thing for me to do is to change that policy, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Oh. But that has to come from your board.
It could come from me without even actually going to the board. I could actually change it.
But I'm saying you don't feel that way enough to make a decision prior
well,
to that.
I have put it on. I have it scheduled for the agenda for September, as they've asked me to do. But if I made an administrative decision between now and then, I could certainly do that. I have that option.
So if Councilman Fleury asked you?
If he asked me, I'd take it under consideration. And then I would make a decision on that basis, and then I would defer to my board to make the final decision.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to ask with Councilman Fleury if we can think about doing the hour, doing something about that hour time, and ask one more question doing that. So if you'll take that under consideration about the hour. But
sure.
From 4 phone calls that I got about you all only sign off on certain things once a week. Is that?
No, the site plans are reviewed through a process, and they go before the city departments and the parish departments to get their input, and then it comes back to our office, and my staff members review the final components of it, put it all together, put it in a box, and every Friday I sign off on site plans. So that's why the site plans are done 30 days or less.
So on Fridays only?
Yes. Yeah, typically it's Thursdays or Fridays. I will go sign those site plans, get them back down, and give them back to the planner, who then gives them to the applicant, and then they go forward with getting the permits. That's the speeded up process that we introduced a year ago that has worked so well. And have actually gotten no complaints over that at all. The only time when we've gotten complaints is when an applicant slowed down the process or where a mistake was made by my staff. And that has happened where I've had staff members that have accidentally put site plans over the side, didn't realize they were sitting there, and forgot about them. And we've had to discipline them on that and change the policy on that. But typically, their stuff is done in a very quick process, which was not the way it was a year ago.
So the once a week is better than just sign them off as they come along.
The problem is that we have a whole system of things we have to do in the course of a week, and so it's much more methodical and easier for me to look at everything in one setting. Typically, it's like 4 or 5 site plans at one time.
Mr. Chairman, let me express to you, Mr. Sweeney, the fake news thing.
Mm-hmm.
We all are subject to scrutinization.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, the elected being criticized is part of the territory. And people could make up stuff. Okay. We
Sure.
get the good, the bad, and the ugly as it relates to our job performance, our elected duties. So I take issue with that fake news generated what's being discussed here. We don't respond to anything other than what's on the agenda. Anything that's not on the agenda is our opinion. Okay. Last week, for instance, I had a gentleman to come and speak about the water options of
Right.
privatizing. That was not on the agenda. That was not a part of the equation of the determination of this council. But yet, the media took it and ran with it as though we are about to vote on changing
Sure.
the way we operate our water system. So I'm saying that happens. But if we're not discussing it like we are now, it's not a part of our consideration of policy.
Right.
Okay, we create public policy for this city,
Right.
and regardless of what may have been said about MPC or anybody else about any issue, if it's not debated, and we taken full and complete time to debate this issue of this change, because it reaches to the level of that we need to give it our time.
Sure.
And I think we spent time here today because tomorrow we're going to be pondering this, but there's going to be others coming before us and giving their input about this. So, a lot of us probably won't even be coming back making comments because we've done this, but we're going to give it total determination of creating an option for what we do. Even if we was to bring forth something regarding any area of this city, it would be determined by us, by the majority of this vote, what do we think is in the best interest.
Sure.
And that's the beauty of us working as a unit, because whereas it may not be initially initiated by one of us, it becomes a consideration of all of us. So we didn't bring this conversation up, or this legislation up, regarding creating an option by listening to anybody except for the council member that thought enough of it that it needs to be considered by the full council.
And anything that y'all bring up, I take very seriously. And so, regardless of whether it's in the news or not, if you guys say to me, this is something that's important to you and you want to do something that will improve the community and the city as a whole, I'm totally open to that, and I always take that very seriously. So,
Thank you, sir.
you're welcome.
I just have one last question.
Okay, Councilwoman.
Okay, so if this passes tomorrow, thank you, Mr. Sweeney. If this passes tomorrow, are you gonna leave these folks alone? That's all I wanna know.
Yes, I promise. Because the council, that's the reason I asked Mr. Thompson, Mr. Bradford, Mr. Crawford to get me out. I wanted everybody to look at it to see, but we were going to answer and respond to the citizens. So, yes. And on one quick, we'll move on, but I just wanted to define for you in Mr. Sweeney's world, definition of compromise is very restrictive. And that's all I have to say till tomorrow. Okay, let's move on.
Mr. Chairman, we're under introduction of resolutions not to be adopted prior to August the 22nd, 2017. Resolution 134 authorizes the mayor to execute an acceptance of an act of donation between the city of Shreveport and Lakeside RMA LLC for the private water and sewer improvements for Lakeside on Long Lake Unit Number 6, water and sewer and related facilities. Resolution 135 authorizes the mayor to execute an accepted donation between the city of Shreveport and S&J Development of Shreveport for the private water and sewer improvements for Oakwood Trace water and sewer systems and related facilities. Resolution 136 authorizes the mayor to execute a surface use of right-of-way agreement associated with building 1 pad to drill up to 5 gas wells and the use of existing roads at the city of Shreveport sludge fields located along Harts Island Road. Resolution 137 authorizes the use of certain city-owned equipment by the Junior League of Shreveport-Bossier. Resolution 138 authorizes an execution of a cooperative endeavor agreement between the Shreveport-Bossier Sports Commission and the city of Shreveport. This is for the 2017 Powerboats National Grand Prix Championships between September 1st and the 3rd. Resolution 139 authorizes the execution of a cooperative endeavor agreement between American Idol Products, Inc. and the city of Shreveport for their bus tour to come here and see if we've got any potential Idol contestants. Council, if you're interested in that.
Productions.
That's right. Productions Incorporated. Resolution 140 authorized the execution of a cooperative endeavor agreement between Get Up Inc. and to otherwise provided with respect thereto. And this is for the C.C. Antoine 181st birthday celebration.
Jerry and I were working on our duet, but then we found out that if we vote on this, we'd have to recuse ourselves.
That's right.
It might be a solo act from here on out.
Uh-oh.
Please don't vote.
Please don't vote.
That's why Oliver's not here today. I think he's planning on participating.
Exactly right.
And he got a song
Any
he wants to
discussion?
sing.
Let me look. Do you think there was
sure.
something?
Sure.
Oh, I know what I was going to ask is on the acceptance of donation. On the fact sheet, I think. Okay, is this the estimated operation and maintenance cost that's on here? That's what. Thank you.
That's the yearly. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's what I was looking for.
Okay. Any other? Let's move forward.
Introduction of ordinances not to be adopted prior to August 22nd, 2017. Ordinance 77 authorizes the mayor and Sportran to execute a lease of city-owned property located at 1237 Murphy Street, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71101, commonly referred to as the Shreveport Intermodal Facility, to Greyhound Lines, Inc., for the purposes which benefit the public and otherwise provide with respect thereto. Ordinance 78 and 79 are both companions. 78 amends the 2017 budget funding contractual services provided to Sportran by Metro Management Association, and they're moving that $5,791 down to ordinance number 79, where they're amending their 2017 capital improvements budget for the reappropriations of the FTA's final year funding. Ordinance number 80 amends the 2017 general fund budget. This is to reset the operating reserves based on the 2016 capital report that just came out. Ordinance 81 amends and replaces section 90-363 of the Shreveport Municipal Code relative to parking. This is related to the Sportran adjacent parking lot to the new intermodal facility. And ordinance number 82 amends and replaces chapter 102 of 127 of the Shreveport Municipal Code relative to Sportran fares. This does not increase any bus fares. This just provides 3 additional options, one being the downtown circulator route, one a 7-day pass, and then the third one a new 20 ride paratransit pass.
Okay. Any discussion?
Chair, we'd like to point out that ordinance 77 is not to be adopted prior to September the 12th.
Councilwoman?
No, I think that's all.
All right, let's move on.
Ordinances on second reading and final passage. Ordinance number 76 is an ordinance to amend various sections of the City of Shreveport Unified Development Code, May 2017 version.
This has been requested to be postponed.
Yeah, if I could, and Mark, I want to make sure that doesn't cause any problems, but Thanks. He just confirmed that that he didn't think it would. But I was out of town all last week, and I did get a couple of questions. And I feel like that kid who has to admit I didn't get all my homework done in time. So I'd rather, if I can get a chance to answer some of the other council members' questions before we move forward with that, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay. We have,
I'm not aware of any tabled legislation to come off, Mr. Chairman, and now we're down to property standards appeals. We do have one. Have Mr. Green come forward.
All right, good afternoon.
good afternoon, Mr. Green.
Today's case is (1809) Nicholson Street. The owner has pulled the permit. He has started using some reclaimed wood on some of the structure, and he has also started using new materials on the back. He has asked for 45 days to continue to finish to wrap the outside of the structure out, to wrap it up, and we don't have any issue with giving him 45
Move
days.
for the 45-day extension.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Bradford. Second by Councilman Evers.
Well, with the rain, hold on.
Yeah,
The rain,
can we give them 60 days?
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
'cause
they're
I mean,
making
it's-
progress on it. I mean,
Yeah.
I think they'll be fine with 45, but I mean, we can do this.
Just give them a little extra time.
I withdraw my motion and amend it to 60 days.
Okay.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Let's please vote. And it motion.
What's the count?
It paid.
Chairman didn't see it. It flashed.
It was a couple of.
Yeah, it's
These are
passed.
yours, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all, folks.
And thank you very kindly, Mr. Green.
All right.
Great job. You did an outstanding job.
Are we postponing, I'm sorry, this got by me, ordinance 76 to a time certain, or is it just
Yeah.
next meeting?
The next meeting, the 21st, I believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to do. It's not going to take a long time to answer the questions. It's just a few questions that need to be resolved.
I didn't know if you wanted to wait to see if we were gonna have an NPC or if you were.
I am moving forward. I am moving forward, assuming that we will.
Gotta move forward.
We'll still have the backseat.
Yeah, we'll still have a development code.
Getting
So one
rid of
way or the other, we
things
want it to be the best.
At this time, are there any reports from officers, boards, or committees?
Mr. Chairman, the Audit and Finance Committee will meet tomorrow at 2 o'clock. We have two items on our agenda. One is to hear from the auditors about the 2016 CAFR. And then second, we'll have a presentation from administration on the 3 platoon tax and some information that they need to share with us there. Although it is an Audit and Finance Committee meeting, I think the information is important, and I would encourage every council member who can be there to attend.
Okay. Tom? Anything from you?
Mr. Chairman, I had a report on the MPC, but the information has already been given.
Are there any additional communications from the mayor?
No, I just need to say that I did send the information about the 3 millage platoon tax so that every council member could have access to what it was about. So if you want to go back and review that before Councilman Corbin has his meeting tomorrow, I did send that to you all last week. Thank you.
Council members, Councilman Everson?
Oh, that was an old one.
Okay.
I think it just never cleared off.
Somebody over here ain't happy.
I was so blown with MPC.
Okay, Councilman Bradford is first.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I request that somebody from Administration of Police would respond to my second two questions. But before I do that, Mr. Chairman, let me express, and I know the mayor have been engaged with the family of young Deshaun Cumbest through the whole ordeal of that tragic incident. But I want to personally thank Chief Wolverton and the Shreveport Fire Department. I was out there, and the mother and the family was there, and I had a chance to engage with them. But before I did, I observed such a display of kindness, concern, care, and just overall goodwill toward that family. The sensitivity that he showed personally, as well as his other, those that was there at the command center, you couldn't help but feel warm because of her distraughtness and her state of mind. But I saw Chief comfort her in a way that remind me of a preacher. You're a preacher. Jerry, quit telling stories to people. But it was a good thing. I appreciate that, Chief. I really appreciate that. And it just was a heart drenching situation. But you, at the time of her, I guess, her real deep anxiety, you responded like a true professional, like a true servant. Thank you. In regards to the resolution regarding action for assistance in patrolling, what ever become of that, Mayor?
Well, we have not heard anything from the sheriff. I thought you were going to follow up with the sheriff. That was the last thing that I heard, because we had already spoken with him. But did you follow up, Councilman Bradford? Because you told us you would follow up and see what he said.
No, the resolution was to ask that you would request the sheriff to.
And I told you I had already done that.
No, that was prior to the resolution. You didn't.
Well, Chief.
Okay, so there had been no communication.
Did respond. In fact, the media had his response, and I mean, his response was actually public. But we did follow up, and I would say that we have asked him and several others.
Well, I'm confused a little bit. I thought if the council made a request of the administration that they would at least give us some feedback about.
And I did. I don't work for the council, but I did give you feedback. I told you we had talked to him. He was working with us on various, task forces, and that's what he could do at the time. And that was the answer that we got.
No, but there was no direct request of is he in a position to provide in the city, inside the city patrol? That was never requested of him.
Yes, sir.
It was.
Yes, it was.
In regards to I'm going to use Coco Kelly's because that has been a very bad establishment when it comes to incidents and safety. What is the protocol, Chief, when incidents happen inside of private clubs and establishments like that? Does it, if a crime happens inside of a bar or a nightclub, how do the police respond to that?
First, we would need a identified victim. A lot of times, things that happen inside nightclubs are not reported to us. Sometimes they come through an email, or some concerned citizen may contact someone and pass information on. And once we receive it, then we try to investigate it as best we can. But there first has to be someone that is making a complaint. They have their own security inside the club, and however that operates is not under our control. We don't put security in those establishments.
So, and I'm gonna use social media as an example. Social media is constantly confronting the public with incidents that happen there. That's not something that you can respond to.
Well, we investigate what we can. As a matter of fact, to use your example, I got an email relative to a incident that took place at Cocoa Palace where a gentleman was attacked on the inside of the club. And according to what we've been able to find out, the security inside the club took him outside and left him there. And citizens called the fire department to offer assistance. Well, I forwarded that email to our ACP and investigative division to have someone look into it. Patrol did respond down there in the morning hours, and we were able to follow up and locate that victim to try to get as much information as we could relative to what happened. He was kind of fuzzy on that because he said he was attacked from his blind side, but we did receive reports that multiple individuals were attacking him and kicking him. Some citizens or other people that were patronizing the club that knew the young man gave some names to him that he passed on to us, but we have to verify that by the video. Since those incidents, our investigators have been down to the club. They talked to the management. At first, they said they didn't have any cameras, but the cameras were pointed out to them inside the club in the area where it took place. And so we're waiting now for that information to be downloaded. Hopefully, it will provide something that can go along with the names that were given. So we try to investigate as best we can. Our Office of Special Investigations have also been making club checks there. And that club has been cited on numerous occasions. It was also found out that they were behind on some fees that they were supposed to be paying. And somewhere at the latter end of July, first part of August, they were due at the state in reference to those that particular club, Cocoa Palace, and another club owned by those individuals. I'm not fully aware of the final details, but they were behind on some fees and a lot of issues that they were facing, but they were to meet with the state, and the state would make a determination. I don't know what kind of communication they had on all of that, but evidently it was something satisfactory enough for them to be open, I believe, this past weekend. So I can try to find out what took place there if I could.
Well, Chief, I appreciate whatever you do to sort of deter some of that activity. But did I hear you say that the owner said they didn't have cameras, and they did have cameras? Did you say that?
Yes. Let me. I have to use my phone to try to get to the latest email that was sent to us relative to that. These are some questions that were asked by our Office of Special Investigations. It says, since the cameras were not working, that's supposedly, obviously what they were told, are they going to be cited? The answer, the cameras were working, waiting for the downloaded copy will be recovered by Officer Cisco or Marlon Clark. Security guards, are they licensed according to Section 10-186A and 6B, and are they in some type of uniform? If not, are they going to be cited? No security guards are licensed through the state and not the city. The ordinances through the city is out of date and not enforced. When cameras were working, were they preserving the video? Yes, to the best of their abilities and capabilities. So just as on another occasion when we received information and went there, and our officers spoke to some of the management in the club, and they said they would comply with the request of not allowing an underage person to perform in the club But obviously, they did not honor that because our guys went back later to check, and that very underage person was inside the club ready to perform. So in addition to arresting that individual, we made some arrests the first time we went there, and when we went back to check, we made arrests. So they don't have a history of being cooperative with law enforcement. But some of the people that go there in kind ways, we try to tell them with all the incidents that have taken place there, maybe they should consider going somewhere else, but they are adults, and that's their choice if they continue to go to that establishment. But we try to do the best we can when stuff is reported to us to investigate it.
Let me ask you this, and this will be my last question. In the public domain in regards to bars and an establishment that sell alcohol and beer, and they get cited for selling to minors or doing some other illegal thing, they get cited. As a matter of fact, last year there was an establishment in Council Bowman's district that came to the point there that the license was taken away. You mentioned that there was constant violations. What would be the process if there are constant violations that they're not cooperative and they're out of compliance in areas of utilizing underage and they, your special unit squad and your vice squad has been there and saw this and wrote them up and cited them and ticketed them. What is the consequences?
Well, I mean, I'm not the court system. All we can do
I'm just saying,
is
does you have any recourse to say to your people that let's go after their licenses?
Well,
is that a civil matter? I mean, for instance,
well,
like the people who came before the council to get their license revoked.
There are certain provisions in the ordinances that provide calls for when those licenses are revoked.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Okay, I'm sorry, say it again.
Yeah, I think he just gave you what I was looking up, that there are certain provisions under the section, under the code, chapter 10, that provides calls. It says specifically that it can only be revoked for calls or denied for calls. And it gives you, I think it's 10103, gives you those actual points of calls.
And I appreciate that because again, regardless if they in a club or they on the corner and they're in a park, we have to protect and provide safety for citizens. Is that in that there are different standards that provide safety for every instance that I mentioned. So if there's constant situations where our citizens are being unsafe, we can deal with that. And I'm gonna review this, and I'm gonna get with my council clerk and then review it with the council. With the city attorney, and see if this council have any preview of instituting something that will be categorized as consequences.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief, for your service.
Yes, sir.
And if they're not cooperative, you get flurry on them.
Flurry ain't going out of Cocoa Palace. Stop acting like that, Stephanie.
I said if they're not being cooperative like the other man.
Okay, Council, Corbin.
This is on the same topic, Mr. Chairman, and I'm going to call on Councilman Everson to help me get my timeline right. But it seems like with this particular establishment, I know that the ownership group came before the prior council, I believe on a recommendation that their license not be renewed, and we allowed them to continue with some stipulations. And maybe even the council before that, when there were some issues down in the area, that's where the requirement for video cameras, trained security, and all that has come in. And as we've had administrative changes and council changes and changes within SPD, it may be a good idea to go back and revisit what was put into place specifically for that location to see if something has fallen through the cracks. But Jeff, do you remember that when they came up here and we talked about the license? Wasn't there?
I do, and I do think there was some
while?
type of requirement that was specific to because of their license.
Yeah.
You know, previous to that, maybe even two mayoral administrations ago, maybe even three, there was a set of rules that were kind of for nightlife in that area, but I think that those were either drastically adjusted or done away with under Chief Shaw. So quite some time ago, that would have changed. So that wouldn't have been during this administration, and it would have probably not been while we were on council. I think it was previous to even the last council. So it's been a while, but I know that I know because I have constituents who reference this set of rules that were at one time in place. They've not, to my memory, been in place since I've been on city council, but there is something that people reference that was in place at one point in time. So sometimes people refer to that. But I think you're making reference to something that was either that may have been early on with this council or in our previous council that was specific to their alcohol license. And so I'm sure there's a record of what that requirement was.
If memory serves correct, I think the prior police chief made the recommendation that their license be pulled, and then we heard the case.
Yeah, there was certainly a case before us, and I think that maybe we could pull from the minutes to see if we can find what that was, because it was appealed to the council.
I think it was prior.
Mr. Clerk, can you review that and see what was the last?
The city attorney's asked for it. And,
Okay.
The deputy clerk says she has it. So.
She has it. Okay. All right. Anyway, again, I think it's reached a level that. Hey, Mr. Foreman, now, are you finished?
Yeah.
Okay. It just appears that it had reached a level of grave concern for a lot of people. That something we take some type of approach and action to at least let them know that they cannot operate like they operate.
Can we refer this to public safety?
Well, I think it could be, but I think at the same time, some of the information that was requested would be submitted to us.
I just, by the way, was able to pull up in my emails. I found the Cocapelli's appeal that was from, looks like this letter is from July of 2014, and it references that in a meeting in March of 2014, the Shreveport City Council voted to overturn the decision of the Chief of Police, which the decision of the Chief of Police was to deny the permission, to deny the alcohol permit. So the City Council overturned that at the appeal for 6 months with the following stipulation, that if the owner or any employee is charged with any offense that affects the qualifications to hold the liquor permit, the matter will be placed on the City Council's agenda to determine if the permit should be revoked. And then a violation occurred, and so that came to us on July 21st, 2014.
July 21st.
So if we need, to pull records, that would have been the date of that appeal case.
We think we have that, but would you send it to us again?
I will. I'll send that just, I'm just looking to see if I have anything else relevant that I may have saved.
May I ask a question while you're looking? So if the administration brings something after we have done all this research that demonstrates that they've not followed through on their commitment, we make a recommendation to pull the license with the council to hold it this time. I wasn't here July 2014, but if we're at a point where we can bring it back, if the council, will entertain pulling the license, I mean, that's where the rub is going to be. administration can only make the recommendation, but then the council.
It's my recollection, and that could very well be wrong, but it's my recollection that the denial or whatever it was that the council passed at that point was sort of a compromise that happened from a discussion with the chief of police. Like we included something in there that made it come back to us right away. You know, like we discussed with the chief of police at the time. You know, but again, it's been several years since this happened. So let me just send you the letter, but it's certainly I have no. Well,
Right.
You know, I'm happy to do whatever the.
I'm just asking.
The safest option is. Yeah.
Since the police works for the mayor, we bring it back after we see that they have not made good on their commitment, and we make this recommendation based on what Councilman Bradford is saying. We just need to know if y'all are going to consider it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's imperative that we consider taking action. But I'm glad I got the date because I could go back and view the video in the minutes, because at that time the minutes was being verbatim. So the debate of why the council chose to, to overturn the chief's recommendation is very important. On why would the chief come up and make a case on why we need to pull the license of this establishment, and the council through debate will override that. That's interesting. So the video is out there and the transcript is out there. So we would have some information that will aid us. But I think it's at the level where something needs to happen to let that establishment and other establishments know that this city is serious about taking actions against those that violate our codes and ordinances.
And just to make sure that we comply with the ordinance, the recommendation has to come from the chief of police. Our office will work with the chief of police and review all the evidence and reach a recommendation with him at that time. Then the council, under the ordinance, would consider.
Right. But I'm interested in the debate of the previous chief of police's recommendation. And who voted to overturn it? Hopefully ain't nobody that go down there all the time.
In the meantime, can we hear this also on public safety?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a series of events that happen to bring it to this point. Okay.
I'm going to go for y'all.
I'm going
Shut it
for
down.
I'll close it down.
Wait a minute. Listen, before I would like to suggest that the clerk of the council go to Coca-Cola and come back with a detailed report as to what he saw.
You have to be a certain age.
Councilman Bradford and I can't go because we church folks. Anything else before the council?
But make sure that those cameras are working.
I hope the clerk report. Mr. Chairman, I hope the clerk ain't done that when they raid the place.
I only suggest.
Our favorite friend.
She'll be here tomorrow.
Oh, I'm sure she will. I got two other phone calls to go around.
Oh man, it was super. Yeah, your mom was there. Mayor was there. Take your time. Wait a minute. This thing be all man.
Just because, courtesy.
Yeah.
Could have been late for some other reason, and it would have been the same result. But no, we're, yeah, I won't be shocked. She told me she'll be here tomorrow. I mean, you know. I don't know. It's like you're talking to a wall and everything goes there.
Hey, Jazz. You want to talk to me again? Okay, I'm coming.
Every conversation, every meeting, I always tell them before.